Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. Hope you're doing really, really well. This is my team selector for the game against Bournemouth on Tuesday night at Stamford Bridge. Quick turnaround from the Morecambe game, but the tone, the feeling, the pressure on this game is massively different to the one for the FA Cup third round. Obviously, the Premier League returning and Chelsea's form being pretty poor in recent weeks. This is a big game, I think, for Enzo Maresca. I think it's one he has to win. I think Chelsea desperately need to get back on form for their Champions League qualification hopes, for the general tone of this season. And given a lot that's been said, like a lot of it goes into it, but I think that, I sort of look at these runs and it's such a great, demonstration of the way football can quickly turn either way. Because if Chelsea win their next couple of games, even go to the Etihad at the end of this month and win, the tone and nature will flip back again. That's football. But I think maybe as well what's hurt Maresca is some of those flaws in the performances that were overlooked and kind of usurped by the confidence of those players and the good things that Chelsea were doing generally in the winning run that were kind of looked past have been really exposed over the recent run. So I think how Maresca as a coach responds to this environment and this situation, I think is going to be very informative. How Chelsea deal with, as I said, those teams below them starting to catch them up and the dreams of a title going now being in that slog for Champions League. Can they respond positively? As we always do in Team Selector, we'll look at the Maresca press conference quotes. Actually, a lot to say about that this week. We're also going to look at Bournemouth, who've done incredibly well. Some interesting stats around them. And then I'll give you my predicted lineup. Please like, subscribe. If you want to check out my morning show, we spoke about the Vega situation in Trevor Chalobah. Go and check it. Also up in the cards on YouTube. So go and check out the Morning Blues show if you haven't already. Subscribe. Also check out my Substack. Got a shot of Chelsea. That's my weekly column newsletter about Chelsea that can go straight to your inbox on a Monday morning for free if you sign up to my Substack. Also, link in the description box below. So I think Maresca said something really interesting in his pre-match press conference, and it regarded fullbacks and his use of fullbacks, or just the way he looks at fullbacks. So he was asked about Reece James. He was asked about Ben Chilwell. This is the quote. He said, "I'm not a fan of a fullback up and down. The fullbacks that we have, we don't use them up and down. The only game we used a proper fullback was Palace." So quite recently, I assume he's talking about Malo Gusto rather than Marc Cucurella in that game, because Cucurella always naturally inverts. Now, he also went on to say, when he spoke about Chilwell, that it's my choice why he's not playing. And he said, the reason why is because I can see Gusto, James and Cucurella doing different jobs. Chilwell is a top fullback doing up and down. I struggle to see Ben doing different kind of things. So he's kind of defending Chilwell's exclusion as not a club thing. It's my thing. Like, tactically, I just don't see him as a profile that works in my system. And I think that a lot of people... I spoke about this in one of my Morning Blues shows recently about a quote that Maresca gave. I'm trying to remember. I think it was to do with Champions League qualification or kind of the expectation level for this season. And when things are going well, these quotes go unnoticed. No one cares. When we're winning games consistently, whether you think that's consistent and right or not, whether they should get attention or not, that's the way football works. When things start going wrong, these are the sort of quotes that get picked up a lot more, and I think it's justifiable. This is the stuff that I worried about when we appointed Enzo Maresca, and it's kind of this dogmatic, stubborn belief that you have to do a certain thing, even if maybe it's hurting not only your own players, but your own chances of winning. Maybe I'm being extreme by that, but I look at, say, Malo Gusto being the greatest example I've seen this season, because we could talk about Reece all we want, but Reece is a case on his own, because we can talk all we want about his positioning, but if he doesn't remain fit for more than a couple of weeks, it doesn't really matter, does it? So, Reece is not really the part of the conversation. I guess he kind of is, because I had a discussion with Mono during the summer where if Reece stayed fit, which is always the big if, and we saw him inverting, but Chelsea's creativity was being hampered by it, and he wasn't bombing down that flank and using his wand of a right foot to curl a ball in, I'd have real issues. But we haven't seen that because Reece hasn't been available. But in the case of Gusto, you think about the regression of Malo Gusto this season, and I'm a big believer that, player responsibility matters, right? Players' own form. You've got to criticise them. But then I also look at his use as a player compared to last season when he was brilliant for Chelsea and he bombed down that flank, and creatively at times he'd be so impactful for Chelsea even when Reece wasn't there. And I just wonder whether this belief in a system and tactics when you're unwilling to be flexible in certain areas actually hurts you and is kind of not actually getting the best out of a football team. And maybe it feels like the vogue and in trend thing to do. But, fundamental thing is it impacting you? Is it getting you to become a more effective team? Am I right? Am I wrong? Are you someone that just doesn't rate Malo Gusto and you think that because he can't play in this inverted system, we should get rid of him, or at least, you don't have much sympathy? Or are you actually thinking, well, if you've got a fullback that can play that outside role a lot more, why aren't you getting them more out of him? And actually, could that add a different element? I'm not sitting here and going, fullback shouldn't invert. Look at Marco Correa, how brilliant he's been for Chelsea this year. But why can't at least one of them maybe do a more traditional role and actually the benefit for some of Chelsea's wide players? Because it feels at times like Chelsea's wide players are maybe a little bit isolated, maybe forced to take on too many players. And actually, if you do get that wide fullback bombing and overlapping, maybe there could be some space opened up that, teams have to react in a different way. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. But let's move on to Bournemouth. They have done incredibly well. Andoni Areola has done an incredible job. 7th in the Premier League. They are unbeaten in their last 5 games. Justin Kluivert is their top goal scorer. They are only 1 point behind Man City, which is insane. I know, listen, City's form has surprised all of us, right, in terms of them not being where most of us expected, but it just is a symbol of how incredible Bournemouth have done, where Areola has taken them not only to an established now Premier League team, but even one that is dreaming of European football. And there are reasons for it. They have technical quality. Kirkes, I'm sure, is going to be a player that a lot of people are going to be talking about tomorrow because he has been linked to Chelsea. He is one of the best, I think, left-backs currently in the Premier League. Like, on form, he's been brilliant this season for Bournemouth, and Chelsea have been linked with him with that whole Vega situation bubbling away. Semenyo is a very dangerous forward. I think he is someone who's got great speed, great tenacity, and has got a good goal in him. Kluivert has been deadly from the penalty spot, and just generally Bournemouth have been also a great team to respond to adversity. They've scored quite a few late goals in the Premier League. But I looked at some of their numbers generally in sort of comparison to the other Premier League teams. They are 5th for goals conceded, so that's good. Defensively, they're near the top in that. 5th for shots on target, so not bad attacking in terms of getting shots away. 3rd for XG, so that's pretty decent, in terms of actually creating a good volume of quality opportunities. But they are 15th for average possession and 3rd for accurate long ball. So they play a physical, direct, counter-attacking game, and it has worked for them. And it kind of reminds me a little bit, or kind of you can contrast this and compare this to Nottingham Forest's, their success this year. They are also a team that doesn't boast a lot of possession, but are a highly effective team on transition. You can argue that maybe they're outperforming their numbers and that will eventually catch up with them, but we're over halfway into the season, and unless both of these teams, especially Bournemouth, really, really drop off, it looks like they're going to be a top 10 team this year. And that is still even if it doesn't lead to European football, that is still an incredible, I think, job by Areola at Bournemouth. This is what makes it a difficult game for Chelsea, because if you have a team like Forest did earlier in the season, Crystal Palace of recent weeks, we've seen many teams do this at Chelsea. Come to the bridge, sit deep, try and frustrate Chelsea. Psychologically, if I'm Areola, I'm trying to put Chelsea under pressure. I'm trying to frustrate the home crowd, and then I'm trying to hit them on transition. We know the game. Now, against Brentford, which was one of, I think, the more notable wins of the season, even though it came straight before the drop in form, unfortunately, that was a night where Chelsea did overcome that. And how can Maresca approach this game in a way that you can try and get around those issues? And it's going to be interesting because, unfortunately, a lot of his attacking players just simply have not been in form. So it's not like you can go, well, this guy's been bang in form. It's about a combination maybe of tweaking things, but then also hoping that as players have maybe altogether gone out of form, they can all come back into form at the right time. And hopefully that will be on Tuesday night. My team, let's start off in goal. Robert Sanchez, the back four. Reece James, because he only got 45 minutes, I just still think he ain't going to start a Premier League game yet. So I think Malo Gusto will start at right back. If Malo Gusto does start, he really needs to step up. But can we see any freedom of him bombing down that flank? It sounds like not to be the case, but I still think Gusto, just on fitness, will start this game. Josh Achimpong, I think, should be starting alongside Levi Colwill. For me, if Josh does not start this game and it doesn't go well for Chelsea, I think there's going to be real issues. I really do, in terms of criticism towards Maresca, because it felt to me like him not being in that starting lineup for Morecambe was a real sign that he's been upgraded into a first teamer, which is a great sign. And I think he was very composed and had some key interceptions in that game against Palace. This would be a big challenge for him too, because it's going to be another game where Chelsea are going to have a lot of the ball. But I think it's right, because he's, Disasi, Tosin, they haven't impressed. Will Chalobah get recalled? We'll see towards the end of this month. But I think a lot of people want to see Josh be given this run. And I think it's exciting to see that he may well be given it. So Cucurella left back. Let's hope we can get one of those better, more impactful Cucurella performances. I thought it was notable against Morecambe. He seemed to raise the level and just kind of add that spice and kind of maybe that S-housery that it could make the difference in this type of game, because I think it'll be a close one. Defensively, Bournemouth have been pretty good this year, so to expect to go and smash them 3 or 4-0, especially in current Chelsea form, I think is just unrealistic. So it's in these type of games where I want to see Cucurella make a big difference, because I do think he can, over the course of a game, make so many key interceptions and even in the 6-yard box cause some havoc of his own. Enzo and Caicedo remain the first choice midfield too. I think even against Palace, they had some good contributions. I think for Enzo, can he rediscover that goal-scoring touch? Because when you aren't getting those goals and it isn't clicking further up the pitch, we need goals from central midfield. And it was good to see that Enzo had that brief goal run. I want to see a bit more of it in the second half of the season, because I think then he will become an even better player. At right wing, Noni Madueke. He's apparently fit. So if he isn't in the squad for this game, we know that it's got nothing to do with injury. I want Madueke because I saw the way he performed against Brentford, and that's kind of the one I'm thinking of. A low block, a team that came to frustrate Chelsea, and his crossing with his left foot opened the scoring. And I just think he's a more daring player. Neto, sadly, has just not done anything to justify starting games at the moment. His end product just simply has not been there, which is why I think Madueke should and probably will be starting this game. I just don't see. If you're giving me a 50-50 between both, I mean, this is the guy, wide players who's scored the most out of our wide players. We dissected that last week. But for Noni, he really needs to click into gear, because Maresca has already shown that he does not have much tolerance for Noni's fluctuation in performances and maybe effort level, allegedly, in training. So he needs to step up, because I always say I think there's a very talented player within there, and it's on nights like this when Chelsea need a response. He could gain himself a lot of plaudits after a lot of criticism over the past month. Cole Palmer, I think, will continue as number 10. I mean, from what I was hearing about Cy Phillips and kind of the general tone, I think just wishing for Nkunku to, be forced into this team or kind of go into this team feels very unrealistic at this point. So I think I think there's more a percentage chance that Maresca is going to try and improve what he's been working with, rather than radical overhaul of what's kind of worked for him so far, which I can kind of understand. So I think Palmer will stay in that number 10 role. Hopefully can add another goal for 2025. He did score, of course, against Palace. Jadon Sancho also set up that goal. I think Sancho had some really nice moments against Palace. It's kind of forgotten in kind of the nature that there were nice attacking moments, there were creative moments in that game against Palace. It's just whether Chelsea have the end product to finish chances, and that goes directly to Nicholas Jackson, who is in desperate need of a goal. He really needs to start scoring again, because this is a guy in the first half of the season hit 9 goals. If he does the same in the second half of the season between now and May, that would be a decent record. It really would. But Chelsea create chances. It's whether he has the end product to do it, because at the moment it doesn't look like Chelsea are going to be acting in the market to bring in a new centre forward. I don't think Mark Guiu is going to be starting this game. Jackson desperately needs to find a goal, but I'm going to back him. I do think he will hit form again, because I think he does so many good things in the game. I think he will find his confidence and feet, because he's done it so many times already at Chelsea that I think it'd be unfair not to back him at this point. That is my predicted lineup and thoughts on the game tomorrow night. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.